Good evening, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to all of you. Firstly, I would like to thank all of you for being a part of our event, Global FinTech Fest, organized by FinTech Convergence Council of IMEI and National Payments Corporation of India, presented by Department of Economics, Ministry of Finance, and Reserve Bank of India, powered by Amazon Pay and brought to you by WhatsApp and Google Pay. With that, I would like to commence with our last session for the evening, a very special valedictory address on the topic Finance and FinTech, Invigorating Investment and Inclusion of India. And for the same, I would like to welcome our esteemed guests, Shri K. Rajaraman, Additional Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, along with Ms. Smita Agarwal, Global Investments Advisor, Flourish Ventures. We would like to welcome both of you. And to begin with, I would request Shri Rajaraman sir to kindly address our audience first. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening to all of you. Good evening to the participants of this global FinTech festival and especially the organizers of the event for doing a great job during these difficult times. So it is great to hear of over 13,000 participants from over 50 countries. And even more fantastic to hear of crowds in a COVID world, So it's quite interesting. I would like to first of all talk about the role of FinTech as we see it in government. FinTech has been means by which financial services can be extended to underserved and unserved sections and regions of the country. It has been a means of raising the efficiency of the banking system, the other financial services like insurance, pension, etc. It also is an opportunity for expanding access to financial services which have traditionally been which have not reached out to many people in the country, for instance, pensions. So therefore, I would feel that this is a great opportunity to harness the means, the various technologies that have been developed in India and many parts of the world to serve these unserved segments. While we talk about that world over, I mean, we see product expansion. I mean, I think many innovative products and services being made available not only by banks but also by maturing fintechs, which continue to grow. We also see the reach of fintech going to, I mean, even the remotest part of the world, when it includes Africa, Latin America, I mean, Southeast Asia, and so on and so forth. We also see the rise of big tech, giants like Google, Apple, Tencent, and Amazon, and so on, and jumping into the fintech bandwagon as they try to bring in more services to their existing clients and to integrate their scale with new products that they wish to launch. We also see new instances of new ways of doing businesses through digital banking licenses that have been issued in Hong Kong, Australia, and Singapore, where banks are going virtual. So essentially, I think a lot of very different and innovative models are emerging as time passes. So on one hand, we have traditional banks which have invested heavily in front-end infrastructure to improve customer experience. But at the same time, we have young fintechs which come up with technologies which are state of the art, which provide far better consumer convenience and comfort. But at the same time, I think the process of merging both these worlds of large financial services providers working together in partnerships with fintech has proven to be the most difficult process. We hope that maybe in this year or maybe times to come, these partnerships get more and more effective, enabling the reach of fintech to scale up very fast. While we talk about all that, I mean, in India, I think we all have a very strong national digital foundation, especially in the payment space, which have been built up over the last several years. We have, thanks to the growth of Aadhaar, the reach of the direct benefit transfers through various schemes, suite of open application programming interfaces such as the UPI, Bharat Beam, Bharat QR, DigiLockers, etc. So at the same time, we also have seen the growth of KYC models, both electronic KYC through OTP. Now we have the video KYC and so on and so forth. So we have a number of innovations which have happened in the payments world, which help us to believe that maybe we can definitely scale this up further. The experience of the digital infrastructure that we have built up during the last 3 months has been very significant. In fact, we have been able to make almost like $10 billion worth of payments to about 400 million people because of the sound digital payments infrastructure that we have built up over the last several years. So this has been a time when it has been tested. So there have been a lot of pluses, and there are a lot of lessons that have been learned. I'm sure that these payment systems will get further strengthened over the course of time as we keep learning these lessons, or these, I would say, tough tests that they have been put to. While I mean the other most important piece of infrastructure remains is the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, which has managed to provide accounts to nearly 400 million people who have never been banked in the past. So these, along with the internet and mobile subscriptions, which have been made possible, nearly we have about little more than a billion mobile subscribers, and about 540 internet users, and about 520 mobile internet users. So all these are, I mean, I would say, sound infrastructure which can be used to further strengthen the various fintech services that can be launched in the near future. So we are extremely delighted to see the confidence that fintech industry has inspired amongst the foreign investors and as well as local investors. The fact that the startups have raised about nearly US 2.6 billion in 2019 shows the kind of confidence that international investors have seen the fintech service providers in India. So when we look at the digital payments, which appear to be the most significant area where fintech growth has been significant, we see further potential. The RBI high-level committee on deepening of digital payments, for instance, has made a number of recommendations which we believe will take the fintech growth to the next level. Though, of course, in the last 5 years, the digital transactions per capita has grown from nearly about 2.4 to about 22, which is almost like a 10x growth. So at the same time, I think we need to probably look at the underserved or unserved segments that still continue to exist and see how we would be able to ensure that the infrastructure that you have built is able to take the leap to the next level. The UPI, for instance, has been one of the biggest success stories, and it has enabled even the non-bank third-party application providers like Google, Amazon, etc., who also offer services. So I think the competition has really intensified. Today, as of now, we have about 155 banks live on the UPI platform, which is a matter of great credit to the NPCI and the team which actually created it. Now, if you look at the focus areas for the government, I think essentially it focuses the intention is to look at how fintech can be further harnessed to provide for greater financial inclusion, especially for SMEs and for the agriculture sector. So essentially, we are now looking at how we would be able to harness the invoice infrastructure that has been built up through the GSTN system to marry that with threads, so that probably the ability and the willingness of banks to lend to the SMEs further improves. So this is an area where I think the government is very keen to work on and to complete the process of integration. Similarly, the digital distributed ledger technologies also offer a lot of potential in terms of, say, in trade financing, in terms of validation mechanisms across supply chains, and so on and so forth. So while these technologies form the basis for for all these innovations, there is also a need for regulatory support. I mean, I think this is an area where the government has really pushed further action through the coordination with the various regulators. So the RBI's sandbox and the SEBI sandbox have really enabled the innovative startups working in the fintech sector to look at the new areas for innovation, which could probably even span multiple regulators. So we are also looking at possibilities of coordinated action between the various regulators to enable them to support innovations which span several regulatory jurisdictions. I would sum up by saying that the Department of Economic Affairs has set up a platform, the Interministerial Steering Committee on FinTech, which proposes to harness FinTech for specific areas of public interest, such as SME and agriculture, in terms of land reforms, and so on and so forth. So we would be very happy to actually to work with the stakeholders to support any innovation which is scalable and where policy intervention is required. So we would be very happy to hear from you as to in what manner we will be able to support you. Similarly, we also believe that another area of interest is the penetration of insurance and pension in this country. So currently we have insurance penetration of nearly 3.7% against a world average of 6%. Pension penetration also is a very low figure. So we believe that FinTech would provide the means to actually to expand this penetration, especially in micro pension and micro insurance schemes. So we look forward to the FinTech industry working with the financial sector players to increase the outreach of the micro pension and micro insurance products across the country. Similarly, if you look at, we are also keen to support the growth of adoption of drone and remote sensing technology in the agricultural insurance sector. So pilot studies have already been taken up. At the same time, we would like this to be scaled up and leading to probably lower risk perception by the insurance companies and perhaps falling premiums and better benefits to the farmers. Similarly, the possibility of creating a central credit registry for farmers and an agri stack, which will enable lending to the agriculture sector a little better financially attractive proposition. So we have been working with the Department of Land Records which has to create APIs for land records to be made available to financial institutions. So, though of course some of these tasks remain a little forbidding because of the fact that there is an enormous amount of coordination that is required with the state governments. But nevertheless, it is an effort that is worth taking, and therefore we would be working over the next few years with the Department of Land Records to enable this to happen. Similarly, we also see a potential for expanding the electronic national agriculture markets, which covers nearly about 600 large markets in the country, in enabling the electronic negotiable warehouse receipts to be discountable by banks. So we have been working with the Warehousing Development Authority of India and the Department of Agriculture to enable this joint coordination to happen, and probably a portal which would enable financing of ENWRs on a larger scale than probably is being done now. I would end by saying that there is also a potential for cross-border payments to be supported through the use of technology. The Bank of International Settlements has got a committee called the Committee for Payments and Market Infrastructure. So the RBI and the Government of India are members of that. So the CPMI is working on a report which would enable cross-border payments to become far easier, faster, cheaper means of transferring payments. So we are very keen to work with the fintech industry to at the earliest possible opportunity to enable, with specific reference to workers who live abroad, to transfer payments to India at a much lower cost than is being done now. So I will end by saying that the the COVID-19 has thrown up a lot of challenges. At the same time, it has also pointed to a lot of opportunities, which the fintech industry and the government needs to seize to enable the reach of fintech to improve the welfare and the efficiency of the economy of this country. And I would also say that we are very keen to have collaborations with some of the other jurisdictions, including Singapore, United Kingdom, the Middle East, and so on and so forth, where a number of diaspora live. So that probably we will be able to consider possibilities of, say, globalization of the UPI cross borders, which can be used both by the workers living abroad as well as by tourists who go visit these countries. So I would therefore thank the GFF organizers for this opportunity and hope to listen to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajaraman sir, for those lovely words. I would now request Agarwal ma'am to kindly take over the session for the fireside chat. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. That was amazing in terms of, the number of points that you covered in your address. And I would like to ask a few follow-up questions. Before that, I would really like to thank you for your support as the presenting partner of the Global FinTech Fest, India's largest fintech event. In fact, you mentioned about attracting investments, and a short while ago at this event, the India FinTech report was released, and I would like to quote some interesting statistics that came from that report, which would make you smile for sure. In 2019, for the first time, India surpassed China in fintech investments and became the third most funded country behind only US and the UK. The cumulative investments in India fintech in the last 4.5 years, since January 2016 to June 2020, have touched $10 billion. And fintech investments in the first half of 2020 have been $1.47 billion, which is still a 60% increase over the corresponding period for 2019. So overall, yes, there has been a tremendous growth, and I think this has been a function of everybody, all stakeholders, starting with the government, regulator, fintech startups, entrepreneurs, existing banking sector, and the entire financial sector. There are, one of the things that you mentioned in your address was fintech being a tool for financial inclusion. And very interestingly, we had Vijay Shekhar Sharma of Paytm a couple of hours ago on the same platform. And when he was asked which is the top opportunity for fintech in India, his response was, inclusion is an opportunity, but inclusion is an obligation, but also an opportunity. So if we have some of the most successful entrepreneurs believing that there's a huge opportunity in inclusion, I think the message is kind of very loud and clear. And I'd like to double click on some of the things that you spoke about. MSMEs is really a very, very large, underserved, untapped segment in our country. And we had yesterday the launch of the Open Credit Protocol network that has been. So could you share more? Because credit is actually the biggest need of the MSMEs, and that is the biggest driver and the lubricant for driving economic growth. So would you be able to elaborate more on how credit could flow more to the MSMEs? What kind of platforms and enabling structures are possible to make this work much better?
Smita. So the new concept of lending is using invoices as a means of finding out the transactions that an SME runs through. So therefore, the concept of flow-based lending has emerged, provided we have a trusted invoice infrastructure. That is essentially the core of the flow-based lending strategy. So we believe that the GSTN database provides the best possible invoice infrastructure in the country, and eventually I think this will become a separate product by itself. The Department of Revenue has actually announced some time back the launch of the e-invoice platform. So it will take a lot of time, but nevertheless, to start with, before the e-invoices become a reality, I think there is an opportunity for at least invoices to be numbers to be tracked and used as means of financing. So we essentially see that cash flow based lending picking up based on this intermediate step which GSTN could provide through an API to financial service providers.
Right, and yes, you mentioned about the GST and TREDS, interface to make this more seamless and more smooth. Is there an expectation that this is likely to happen soon? Is work on that already underway?
Yes, I mean it requires a lot of work. Therefore, I guess it's been announced so quite some time back in the budget by the finance minister a year back, nearly a couple of years back. So therefore, this is work in progress because GSTN itself has been going through transformation. So therefore, we expect it to happen sometime probably the coming year, and that's our good guess.
The other thing that you mentioned, and clearly a big need of the hour, is the entire agri sector. We are clearly looking at a huge uptick from the rural economy, especially so in the post-COVID times. And the big challenges in the entire rural and agri sector is information asymmetry, the entire fragmentation that we have of the small farmers, and so difficult for them to get market linkages and get access to fair prices. And therefore, clearly, there's a huge opportunity for technology and fintechs to play a role in solving some of these issues. One of the big stepping stones to do this efficiently would be aggregation through FPOs. But the big issue with FPOs is they are not digitized, they are not technology enabled, and they're not that, so is there any effort happening on improving the efficiency and digitization of FPOs?
That's a very good point that you made. So essentially, there is an opportunity here to work to integrate ENAM, the agriculture market where commodities are traded, along with ENWRs, the electronic negotiable warehouse receipts, which accredited warehouses provide through the WDRA, and the banking system through an integration which is similar to the TREDS. So if that could happen, I'm sure that and integrating that with FPOs finally. So if that can happen, then I guess probably there will be a lot more traction in providing, in enabling farmers to get better realization in terms of the price for their commodities. So it would make intermediation far more efficient and less costlier in terms of, say, enabling the benefits to flow to the farmers. So we believe that the opportunity is here. So we in fact, the Interministerial Steering Committee actually had discussions with the Agriculture Department of Agriculture and the Small Farmer Agriculture Consortium, which is the coordinating organization for FPOs, SFAC. So there is an opportunity here so we are in the process of working with them. And we'll be very happy to listen from fintechs or hear from fintechs which could work in this collaboration process.
Right. Similarly, on the entire, you mentioned about the interministerial committee that you have put in together to make sure there's better coordination. There's the FinTech steering committee that, Department of Economic Affairs steer, and there's a lot of action points that have emanated. Many of them have actually been implemented. You have been very welcoming about asking the industry to engage with you and fintechs to engage with you. Is there a forum or is there a common place what's the best way to garner this cross collaboration and ecosystem conversation with the ministry, with the regulators? Is there a way that, this could become a more regular practice rather than one-on-one people approach the ministry or the regulators? Are you thinking of putting together some sort of a forum or a platform where there can be open discussion and suggestions coming from the fintech community?
That's a very good question. So essentially, right now, fintech interactions happen in the IMSC that we have set up ourselves. So we would encourage fintechs to directly approach the ministries, which I just mentioned, the Department of Land Records, the Department of Agriculture, the Small Farmers Agri Consortium. There are a number of organizations, the National Cooperative Development Corporation, the NABARD. So there are a number of organizations which are working on using fintech for expanding the reach of the products and services they already provide to the public. So we would be very happy to also use the to support in this process of reaching out to these departments as well. Though I guess we would be. I think you made a valid point. I think we would be very happy to actually launch a portal, perhaps jointly with the industry, to set up a to promote and facilitate fintech collaborations. I think, in fact, this is a brilliant idea which I think we will take forward.
Great, thank you. And there is this other point you mentioned about cross-border payments that that obviously are hugely inefficient. Of course, they're inefficient for the trade flows, but they really pinch the migrant workers, the low-income workers who end up spending a significant percentage in trying to do that. And there's collaboration that you're talking about with learning from. There could be. So again, are there any specific ideas around that are already in the making on how distributed ledger can be used, or is there any other ideas that you would want from the industry or from the fintech startups to help solve that? What would be most helpful to give an impetus to that problem getting solved?
Since cross-border payments are multiple regulators being involved, and I think on both sides of the transaction, when you have a bilateral remittance. So it's going to be complicated, no doubt about that. So there needs to be an element of standardization, and that's precisely what the CPMI under the BIS is working on. So once we expect this roadmap to be published. There are two reports that the CPMA has already published. So the third report is likely to be published maybe in another 6 months. So by October, the G20, which has commissioned this report, will be in a position to actually look at bilateral cooperation based on the standards that the CPMA has thrown up. So it's going to be quite challenging. But in the meanwhile, there are possibilities of, say, products like UPI, providing cross-border services on a specific bilateral cooperation mechanism. So that, I think, is something which NPCI is engaged in, and I'm sure that they will be able to throw much more light on where we are headed.
So I'm just looking at some of the questions coming to us from the audience. We have a very engaged group. So one of the things is what could be some of the forward-looking policy announcements to support the fintech ecosystem in India?
Essentially, if you look at it, the fintechs are sources of innovation. So therefore, the Startup India Action Plan, which was launched in 2016, provides the support for all kinds of startups, including fintech. So therefore, the government of India set up a fund for startups, which have with a fund base of about 10,000 crores. And they have actually supported 53 alternate investment funds in providing and committed about 3,500 crores as capital. So I would feel that maybe we must have we must probably look at more alternate investment funds which can support startups emerging as part of the process to tap the support that the government of India is giving. At the same time, we also see that the sandbox, the sandboxes that have been set up by the regulators, by at least RBI and other regulators are in the process of setting it up. These will provide the formal processes by which ideas can turn into products in the market. So we hope that the cohorts that may engage themselves in the sandboxes become the next generation mature fintechs of the future. So we believe that these are some of the efforts that we can which are already in the offing. That could be more efforts in terms of, say, providing any facilitation support that fintechs may require as part of its development process, which through the process of the interministerial steering committee and the other regulators who are already in place.
Yeah, I think, UPI for cross-borders is a wonderful idea. UPI is clearly a world benchmark in many ways. And if we can extend that to other forms of payment and bring the cost down, it would be a huge trendsetter. clearly for the sector to grow, the biggest lubricant is funding and access to capital. So what would be your message to investors from everywhere across the world as to why India is an opportunity and why India FinTech would be an opportunity that they should be looking at?
Essentially, I think the heart of the whole, of this industry lies in the entrepreneurs, the fintech entrepreneurs. I think we have the best of the entrepreneurs who are extremely savvy, who are tech savvy, who are risk takers, and who see this large market. As an opportunity. There are several parts of the market which are unserved, underserved, etc., which are great opportunities. So therefore, fundamentally, there are two things. One, the entrepreneur. The second is the large market that India is. The large market which is growing and where the aspirations, the, the, uh, the expectations of the consumers are growing, especially in the rural India. So I think these are all great opportunities which will provide the base for any business. So therefore, I feel that this is the place to be for at least the next 10 years.
I think one of the, apart from, of course, the market and the entrepreneurs and the technology, I think the big enabler is the policy environment that gives comfort to the investors to continue to back innovation. And obviously, in order to attract private capital, they all need to kind of invest in sustainable and profitable businesses so that, it can continue to attract new capital. So any message from, of course, India has been a benchmark in setting a lot of these public digital platforms, which have given, which have laid out this entire digital rails for people to build on top of that. But there is also sometimes a concern that if everything becomes commoditized and everybody is able to access everything equally, then what is the business opportunity left? And that's what we have seen. While UPI and the payments rail have significantly improved and increased the adoption of digital payments, the entire monetary proposition of that is actually something that is still being questioned. So is there a message that you would want to give in terms of laying out infrastructure versus making it sustainable to attract private capital?
Certainly, I think there are challenges in this process. There are maybe things like, say, if you look at underserved populations, then there could be a possibility of the willingness to pay for services and so on and so forth. So, these kind of challenges are bound to be there in a business. But I'm sure that the business models, the innovative business models that are being developed, provide a solution for some of these challenges as well. So, therefore, I believe that the heart of the fintech revolution is the innovation itself. I'm sure that the entrepreneurs will find a solution. The government is very keen to provide an enabling environment in the form of, say, financing, in the form of, say, equal access, non-discriminatory access to services, and also to throw open databases which might support fintechs to grow a new business model in a commercial fashion.
Thank you so much. I think the entire audience, the entire fintech ecosystem, and the BFSI community that's listening to you would have drawn a lot of comfort with the excitement from behalf of the government that you have expressed here. And I'm sure there are lots of entrepreneurs who are already, thinking about new innovations that would actually align with the government's agenda of making sure that financial services are available to the most excluded and the least privileged. I'd like to hand over now to Mr. Srinivas Jain.
Yeah, thank you, Smita. It's my duty to propose the vote of thanks today. Thank you, Mr. Raman, for a fantastic session. Let me just get the slides and again. So it's today we had a fantastic session today on behalf of FinTech Convergence Council and National Payment Corporation of India. We would like to thank each and every one of you for being part of a global FinTech festival. We've received an overwhelming participation, which has made this the largest FinTech event of its kind. We're thankful for the Department of Economic Affairs, which has made this event possible. We are also thankful for Reserve Bank of India for coming up on board as presenting partners for this event. We'd like to thank the World Bank and United Nations Capital Development Fund, UNCDF, for supporting this festival. It has also been my pleasure to virtually host all the participants at the Global FinTech Festival. In the last 2 days, we have seen over 13,000 delegates who have registered. We have some really path-breaking.
So would you like to, sorry, would you like to go full screen, sir, for the presentation?
Yes, sure. Okay, so we've had some path-breaking product launch with UPI Pay yesterday. UPI, can you see the screen? I don't get to see the screen. Can you? Okay, sorry about that.
So we cannot see it as of now.
You can't see the screen at all?
We can see the screen, but it's not full screen.
It came in full screen in between.
Just give me a second. Okay, I'm just having trouble going from screen. Will this do? Is it okay? Okay, let me go with what's here.
Yes, no problem.
So I'd like to anyway summarize the highlights. The last couple of days, we had over 13,000 delegates. We had two unique product launches by UPI AutoPay and RuPay commercial card. Also, we had 25,000 plus people visiting our virtual booths. Most importantly, 10,000 plus unique attendees attended over the last 2 days. This was actually truly a global event with participation from over 50 countries and 45% of the international attendance. Also, we had about 5 workshops in the last 2 days, conducted parallelly. We've also been fortunate to have some of the very eminent speakers from the world participate. I've tried to capture some of the quotes that our speakers said in the last 2 days. Sri Amitabh Kant, CEO, Niti Aayog, said digital is the future of lending, which are driven by retail loans. Sri Nandan Nilekani, co-founder and non-executive chairman of Infosys, said democratizing credit to small enterprises will revive the economy. Mr. Vaidyanathan, managing director and CEO of IDFC First Bank, said 5G internet will provide the biggest opportunity to expand financial coverage. Today, Mr. Uday Kotak of Kotak Mahindra Bank said risk management will help banks differentiate and create a unique edge. And some time ago, Mr. Rajaraman highlighted the confidence that global investors have reposed on the Indian fintech industry. I'd also like to thank the GFF Advisory Board, who have been actively involved with the strategizing this event. Sri Rajiv Saxena, Joint Secretary, Investment Division, Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance. Mr. Padmanabhan, Non-Executive Chairman, Bank of India. Dilip Basbe, MD and CEO, NPCI. Rajan Anand, Managing Director, Sequoia Capital. Naveen Surya, Chairman, FCC and Chairman at PCI. Smita Agarwal, VC, Investor and FinTech Advisor. Suniti, FinTech Officer, Government of Maharashtra. And Gaurav Chopra, Vice President, IMI and Executive Director, PCI. I'd also like to specifically thank Praveena and Arif Khan from NPCI, Anu Tiwari from AZB, Denise from FindExcel, Hemant from ENY, and Jaspreet from UNCDF. Very quickly, I'd like to thank all the partners who helped us, without which this event wouldn't have been possible. Without their generous financial support, it would have not been possible to organize this fest. Thank all the exhibitors, all the supporters who supported this event. We would also like to thank our knowledge partner ENY and PwC and all the supporters of the fest. We'd once again like to thank PwC and Medici Global for releasing the report at the festival. We once again thank you for everyone who contributed and made this festival a grand success. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Srinivas, sir, for that lovely vote of thanks. It has truly been a delightful 2-day experience for all of us to host all of you at Global FinTech Fest. We hope that these 2 days have been an enticing and full of learning of experience for you. All the feedback and the responses that we've received from all of you, we will truly note all of it and make this, which will help us make this event even bigger and better next year. In case you would like to view any of the sessions of the last 2 days, all of our recorded sessions will be available on this very platform for the next 2 days. You can log in and screen each and every session again. This is your host, Garima, signing off from Global FinTech Fest 2020. Until next time. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you.